So now we have a fave button that doesn't do anything. Let's make it do a thing. Shouldn't be that different from delete. So once again, when we render the list item, we found this button and added an event listener. Let's find that other button and add an event listener. You may recall in the previous step, I put a class of fave on that button. So searching inside my item, not the document, I will look for the selector .fave button. So if I had a class of fave on something else other than the button, this wouldn't work. Why do I have the class of button on there? Because it is a button, but I'm not looking for the element button. I'm looking for the class button. Because Foundation styles buttons a certain way if you put that class on them. And I want to take advantage of that. So let's find the button, then let's add an event listener. Add event listener. This is kind of going onto a lot of lines, so I'm actually, or going off the side of the screen, so I'm actually going to put some line breaks in here too, inside my argument list. Add event listener. First, which event are we listening for? Click. What do we want to do? Well, we haven't written it yet, but this dot fave flick. And we'll do the same thing. We'll bind it to this so that this inside the event handler will be our instance of the class. And then we'll pass in flick as an argument, because once again, we will need to modify the array. And it'll be easiest if we can find it the same way we did last time. So what does this thing need to do? How should it work? Start out looking a lot like remove flick. Fave flick, it's called. And once again, flick will be passed in as the first argument. Event will be passed in as the last argument, because that's what it always does. So let's find the item. We can do it just like this again. Use event target closest. Then what should we do with it? Well, we saw earlier we can remove a class from something through item.classList remove. I suppose we could probably do item class list add, right? Let's find something. Let's find ourselves an item. Let's inspect one. Inspect. Let's choose the LI itself. Here we go. Here's the LI. And you may remember our DevTools will handily set that element to $0 in the console so we can mess with it. So now $0 is the list item that I selected. So if I say $0.ClassList, there we go. ClassList.remove totally works. There's a ClassList.add. Ooh, there's a ClassList.toggle. Add or remove, depending on whether it's there now or not. How's that work? Let's toggle the class of fave. Okay. So if we look at $0.ClassList again, fave is now there. Notice it returned true. What happens if we toggle it now? It removed it, it's not there anymore, and it returned false. Interesting. Well, let's add something to our style sheet so that if we add that class, it'll appear differently somehow. So these are LIs with a class of flick already. So if we have something with a class of flick and it also has the class of fave, let's style it differently. Let's set a background color of something. I'll use this same little light blue that I used on my silly outer glow on the text up there. So that's now part of our color scheme. Actually, that's maybe, yeah, sure, let's use that. So now if it has a class of fave, I want it to be that color. So let's test this out, refresh. Let's again select an LI. Oh, I broke everything. Stuff's not working anymore. Let's look in the console. Can't read property bind if undefined. I have not saved this recently, it looks like. I don't know what I've done since the last time I saved. Okay, that's better. All right. So let's get one of these. Select the LI so I can say $0. And let's do $0 class list toggle fave. And yeah, changes colors. So I should be able to say item.classList.toggle fave, and it adds the fave class. So instead of changing the background color in JavaScript, I set the background color in CSS. All the JavaScript needs to do is say whether it is a fave or not. It doesn't need to say how faves are presented. Our style sheet will handle that. Does it work? Yep. Puts it on, takes it off. Now we haven't changed the array yet, right? What did we learn about toggle? It returns true or false. If you're adding the thing, it returns true. If you're removing the thing, it returns false. And true and false just happen to be the values we want in our array. So every time we create a flick, it has an ID and a name, and let's go ahead and give it a fave field that is false initially, so that it's always there. And then whenever we toggle that, it'll return true or false, so we could, well, what do you know, we're passing the flick as an argument here. What if we just say flick.fave equals the return value of toggle? If we just remove the class, it's not a fave anymore, and this will return false. If we added the class, it'll return true, and we'll change it to true. Could it be that easy? Let's look at our array right now. App.flicks, sub 0. ID, name, fave is false. Let's fave it. Let's look at that again. Fave is true. Turn it back off. Back to being false. So I didn't even mess with the array here, did I? I just used the flick object. So in handle submit, we create this flick object. We pass that down to render list item. Render list item passes it down into fave flick. Then we change the value, and it changed it in the array. Does that surprise you? Turns out objects are always passed around by reference. In other words, they're not pointers. We don't have pointers per se, but they're a little like pointers in that we're not making a copy when we add flick to the array. We're not saving a copy of that flick to the array. We're saving the very same one that is saved into this variable. So if I change this variable later, it's going to change the one in the array because they're the exact same object. Similarly, when I pass flick into render list item, it's not making a copy of it. it's passing a reference to the exact same flick. So if I make changes in that other method, it's going to change the original, which in this case is also in an array. So we made the object, we added the object to an array, we passed it to one method, which then passed it to another method, and we changed it there. And that changed it everywhere, including inside the array. So if you're not expecting that behavior, it can be kind of surprising. But if you are, it can actually be really convenient. So as it happens, yeah, we don't need to mess with the array at all. We can just change the flick, and that changes it in the array. Piece of cake. Let users toggle their favorite flicks. Questions?